Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're dissecting a psychological phenomenon that touches literally almost all of us. It's the psychology of never enough. We are unpacking the hidden architecture of modern anxiety and what experts are now calling our modern emotional collapse. Think of this as an exploration into the shadows of our daily routines, a mirror held up to a society that just feels increasingly, inexplicably exhausted. So why are you so desperately lonely when you have never in the entire history of human civilization been more connected? It is the great paradox of our time. You have thousands of connections right there in your pocket, constant access to the thoughts and lives of others, and yet there's this pervasive, quiet isolation echoing in the background of your daily life. Let's be clear, this isn't an accident. It's a symptom. Okay, let's dive into this. What we're confronting here is the modern emotional collapse, emotional burnout. It's no longer just a bug in the system. For millions of overthinkers out there, it has become the default operating state. We're not just talking about, having a bad week. We're looking at a sustained, intense psychological state fueled by the very environments we interact with every single waking hour.
See, we live in this perfectly crafted illusion of digital connection. It's bright, it's incredibly fast, and it's constantly updating. It mimics genuine engagement perfectly. But just beneath that glossy surface, there lies a stark, harsh reality of emotional isolation. We are interacting with avatars, vanity metrics, and highly curated highlights, not actual human souls. And the crazy part is, we're being actively manipulated by the exact systems that promise to bring us closer together. Systems engineered solely to optimize engagement while completely ignoring our psychological well-being.
To understand how this happens, we really have to look at dark psychology as it applies to systemic manipulation. And no, this isn't about some shadowy figure in a basement trying to trick you. We are talking about billion-dollar, heavily funded infrastructures. Think about it for a second. Some of the absolute smartest minds of our generation aren't out there curing diseases. They are meticulously designing ways to capture and hold human attention at absolutely any emotional cost. It's literally the sheer weight of modern society's digital architecture pressing down on our ancient, vulnerable biology. To truly grasp why we feel the way we do, we need to shift our focus away from complex emotions and look at the hard biology, because basically we are biological creatures trying to survive in a giant, pocket-sized digital casino. We have stepped onto a digital treadmill that never, ever powers down, driven relentlessly by the mechanics of artificial validation. So the crucial point is, you already know dopamine is our reward chemical. But what we're facing now is a compulsive psychological need for its continuous release, explicitly engineered to keep you endlessly scrolling. These modern systems have completely hijacked our core biology. They've taken basic human curiosity, literally the evolutionary drive that kept our ancestors alive, and turned it into a tightly controlled emotional prison. Let's move forward and see how this builds, because it plays out like a perfectly scripted story. It starts with step 1, a simple trigger, a buzz in your pocket, or maybe just a fleeting moment of boredom waiting in an elevator. Then, step 2, you take the action and open the app. Next comes step 3, the absolute genius of the trap, the variable reward. You don't know what you're going to get. Will it be a like, an awful news story, or a funny video? That unpredictability is exactly what spikes the dopamine. But the reward is fleeting and artificial, bringing us to step 4, the emptiness. An emptiness that instantly demands you start the whole cycle all over again. And repeating that cycle hundreds of times a day, it does far more than just build a bad habit. We are experiencing a permanent rewiring of the human brain. It's a fundamental alteration of our psychological baseline. Our minds are quite literally adapting to expect high-velocity, low-effort stimulation. So when we actually try to engage with the slow, nuanced, and frequently difficult real world, our brains essentially panic. The baseline has completely shifted. The stark realities of this rewiring are honestly crushing. First, we're seeing a widespread erosion of deep emotional focus, the literal inability to just sit quietly with our own thoughts. Then there's an amplified fear of failure driven by the constant observation of everyone else's curated successes. This directly creates an unrelenting modern life anxiety and ultimately a total dependency on artificial validation. The screen simply becomes a cold mirror, reflecting back a deeply exhausted, overstimulated version of ourselves. We often blame ourselves, right? We think we just lack willpower or we're failing to keep up. But the reality is this. We are navigating systems meticulously built to exploit our vulnerabilities and fracture our sense of self. We are fighting environments explicitly designed to break our attention and monetize our insecurities. This systemic fracturing leads us into a deeply concerning societal phase, the silent depression epidemic. This is exactly what happens when profound human suffering and total emotional collapse just hide in plain sight. Because the tools that isolate us are the exact same tools that allow us to project a flawless image of wellness. The true depth of our modern misery often goes completely unnoticed by the people right next to us. Now, what's really interesting about this dynamic is how it creates a harsh dissonance in our daily lives. On the outside, we present this flawless facade. We are high functioning, we're visibly busy, we're constantly online. And society actively applauds this performance. But the inner reality is completely different. It is emotional burnout. It is profound loneliness and a complete absence of genuine joy. The gap between those two realities, between the avatar we project and the exhaustion we actually feel, is exactly where this silent epidemic thrives. When you live with that heavy dissonance long enough, it culminates in a total crisis of purpose. This is the existential aftershock of the digital age. It's what happens when those cheap dopamine hits finally stop working, when the silent depression becomes just way too heavy to mask, and the noise finally clears. We are left desperately looking for meaning in an environment that only ever offered us metrics. And this brilliantly illustrates the final toll of this crisis. It leaves us without a true north. We genuinely lose sight of what actually matters. It creates this perpetual, agonizing feeling of never enough, absolutely regardless of what we achieve or consume. We face an unending emotional exhaustion that a good night's sleep simply cannot fix, and a fundamental disconnection from reality. This ties the entire dopamine trap we talked about earlier directly to our absolute deepest existential fears. The hardest addiction to break is the one that an entire society tells you is perfectly normal. If you are feeling lonely right now, if you are constantly overthinking, if you are struggling with modern anxiety, please understand this. Your struggle is absolutely valid. You are navigating a highly engineered maze, surrounded by people who are equally lost but pretending they know the way simply because that's exactly what is expected of them. I want to leave you with one vital question to ask yourself today. When the screens finally go dark, when the artificial validation ends, and when the scrolling finally stops, what is actually left of you? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Take some time today to sit in the quiet, completely away from your devices, and just see what you find.